Okay, so that's the wash on and off, and as you can see, she's looking really nice down on here. And as you can see, under here, spin the prop right way, there we go. Looking really nice, no problem at all. It's got that nice grimy look, and hopefully you can understand what I'm talking about layering, because now that sort of, you know, the post shading we put on down here look quite stark, and even when we do it at different angles now, it just sort of really sort of blends in, no problem at all. And then obviously over here now, you've got that sort of, you know, the tones and the changes in there that literally give us our look that we're actually after, just to help to break it up. But again, some of these may be a little bit too strong. So we're going to knock this back just a little bit to give it that final little bit of depth. So I said before, you could do this post shading with an airbrush. And if you are that good, and to be honest, I'm not, even down in here around each one of these squares, you could come in and actually put in basically a line. So you're just going to go a line along. But the trouble that you have, if you go too far, it's very difficult to come back. Yes, you could sand it back, but the trouble that you're going to have now is that you're going to ruin that sort of stepped effect of going right the way through, because you're just going to mute it all. So, you know, again, by using oils as we're going to do is a little bit of a safe bet, because if it does go wrong, don't forget, any point you can just come along with a little bit of enamel thinners and wipe this all away and come straight back to this. And this is the nice thing about it. Whereas normally perhaps you'd have to put like a clear coat over this to protect it and things like this, we don't need to. We can go straight on. The other thing that works really, really well is that the clay works very well with oils, because what happens is the clay, you can blend it. It's almost like a makeup. And then the oils you're going to be blending as well. So they really work very well together, and that's the nice thing about it. So for that, what we're going to be using is this. So this is the old Abteilung 502. This is AB 005, which is the shadow color, which I just adore, and I've had this now for about 5-6 years, and I use it pretty much all the time, and we've still probably got, I don't know, half a tube in there. It does give forever. The only thing we have done though is we put it onto a little bit of cardboard, and as you can see, it's leaching out. So when we say leaching out, the linseed oil that makes up the actual the oil part of the oil paint is sometimes makes it a little bit wet. So what we do is we pop it onto a little bit of card here. It absorbs then the oil, but nothing else, and that's the nice thing about it. So it makes it very, very workable. So literally what we got down in here is a selection of brushes. So we've got a nice fine point one, we've got, you know, a bit of a flat one, a little bit bigger. I've got a nice chiseled edge one for doing some lining work as we're going to do. And we've got another one, which is usually an older one, which we're going to use for blending. Okay, so at this point, I'm not going to come near this anything with any type of thinners at all. And in our case, obviously, we're going to be using enamel thinners. As soon as you introduce enamel thinners, you will make this wet and it will start to move. This is just like pantomime makeup or putting makeup on and things like that. You blend it around so you can have a nice muted edge. As soon as you introduce any type of enamel thinners, it will literally start to drag it and start to push it around in areas, and you get hard edge. Great for types of things like oil staining and leaks and stuff like that. But from our point of view, we're going for a gentle effect. So what you don't want to do is have any type of thinners on your brush. So if you've just cleaned out your brush with a little bit of enamel thinners, you want to make sure that there's hardly anything left. So, you know, give it a good old rub on some paper and some tissues and things like that, and make sure you get as much off as possible, or otherwise it won't work. This will just keep dragging off. So to start with, if we start on the underside, we'll come around under here, all right? Then what we can do is show you how we're going to work this. So to start with, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this chisel looking brush here. We're just going to put the tips of this in the brush, okay? And then what we're going to do is just going to brush one side and then the other, and we're just loading up the brush again. So we're just putting a little bit in, not tons of it. And then we're just going to literally load up the brush just like that. All right. So once we've got that on, what we can start to do is just sort of add detail onto this. So what we're going to do is just grab my glasses here. So to start with, again, we're going to do everywhere on here, but we're going to pick out some of the bigger players, some of the major areas where obviously we're going to get more dirt and grime, purely because there's more on the brush at the moment. So to start with, what we're going to do is we're just going to put this just a little bit just down in here. So this is going to be quite a hefty area for this. So we're just going to put a little bit along here, and we're going to go right the way. So we're going across the decal absolutely everywhere, and then right down to the other side. And then anywhere that's got a really big panel line, we can do the same type of thing to it. So really, we're just looking for things with big panel lines. So again, we're just going to come along here. We're going to do the edge of this aileron area. And then again, along here. And then really a lot of the big ones now sort of just coming down here and then down in here. And as you can see, we're just working a little line full down in this. So then these, and then we've got a couple down in here. We're not reloading the brush, so it starts to wear out just a little bit. Then what you can do is just turn your brush over, and you'll notice you've probably got a little bit more on there. So again, obviously we're just going to work some of these over, again, some of these areas, and then you can start to pick out some of the other areas. So maybe a little bit down in here. These are lighter ones, so we're just getting very light strokes just onto these. So we're just putting these all on down in here, just on these panel lines. And this is our sort of shadowing line, if you like. Again, now we're sort of really running out, if you like, for want of a better word, on the brush. We can start to come into other type areas. So again, there's one up here, there's one in here, there's one in here. Again, one right the way along here. So we're just working it along. Again, so you're just sort of adding all of these different areas in here now. So we just, again, it's a delicate operation, but at the same time it's not that delicate. Little bits around there, and I think that will probably do us. So we can just come in with these, and we're just going to pop a little bit of a whiz up there. And again, lastly, these ones over here. Again, so there we go, that's an entire wing done. So now it's obviously the fun bit, you start to literally blend them all together. So when you're blending with them as well, it's that thing about how much do you physically take off. All right, so what we're going to do is we'll start probably where we started the last time, on this strong line here. So all we're going to do is, to start with, we're just going to rub it all the way in. And we're just going to carry it on. And we're just going to fade that in. So you can see how that's fading in. So that's quite nice now. And then obviously we can start on these areas in here. Let's start with these. And we can blend these. And then we're just going to literally, if I start this out, maybe better. We can just go in. And we can really start to blend all of these in. So again, any areas that are really heavy, I wouldn't worry about it because they will all blend in. So you can just come in like this. And again, if you think it's a little bit strong, then you can obviously grab a paper towel. We're just going to lightly, and we're not pushing down too heavy, to be honest, it's just a light rub. Just going to lightly go over, and this will fade it all slightly in, and just to give us a nice sort of shadowing effect into this. And then also by rubbing it everywhere, it just sort of rubs everything in. So again, that's looking good. So again, we've got this big old panel which we did down in here. So we're just going to fade that. I'm going to rub now right the way over everything. And again, we're using a synthetic brush, so I won't worry about it too much. It's probably used to the abuse. You know, and there we go. We're really starting to make a real inroad into this. So again, we're just blending. All these areas all in. And again, great thing about going over the decals. Apart from there, well, I've just chipped a bit off, but you know what I mean. You get it all in there, and then again, you can come back in with your a bit of tissue. And this is dry. Remember, there's no thinners in here, and you can just lightly polish. And this will just take off just a little bit. and just work it all in. And there we go. So hopefully you can see now how we've sort of got this nice shadowing effect in. And when you look at it from both sides now, you can see this extra layer on this wing, and then obviously this one hasn't. And it is just that little bit of thing going down in there. Then there's another layer you can actually do with this, and this is where we will do a little bit on here, but just every now and again, is where you physically come along and you can do a little bit of thinners into this and just make it a bit patchy and a little sort of bit blobby and all the rest of it. But again, it's a great way of just adding that extra layer as it goes right the way through. And again, it's exactly the same on the top. So we'll just load up that brush again, load him right in. Get them all in here, and basically it's just a case of rinse and repeat on the top half. So exactly the same again. We're just going to come in, and again we know this top line here gets a bit of footfall, but this is great because obviously what we can do now is for the first time we can actually add some more material onto the decal itself. So we can just come in here and we can just lightly put these panels just in here, and then again and the ones in here, and we can just literally add a little bit of dirt and grime all along these areas. So we just come up, and again we're only picking out the major ones to start with, and then we'll come back and we'll take care of all the others a little bit later on. And then again, all these finer ones at the front, so angling it in the light so you can see exactly where you are and where perhaps you need to go. So again, little ones just across there. We've got one coming in all the way along here. So it's all looking quite nice. And then again, we can just add the finer ones. Now it's coming off the brush. You know, and there's not a lot of oils just hanging around on here. What we can start to do is just basically work our way through all of these then. So again, so that's all of those on, and again we just got this slight area around the wheel blister. So again, you can add little bits of detail down around those, and then again it's the same on the riveting detail. So obviously the riveting detail is going to carry on right the way over the markings. So we're just going to come along, and again, so start off with on the stronger areas, and then you end up doing all the thinner ones. And then again, just along these and along them. Again, just looking for rivet lines. So there we go, that's on just like that. And then again, we're back to just the big brush, starting in the bigger ones. And we're just going to blend. And this is all you're doing, literally, it's only blending. And again, you just blend it down, and then when you're, to a certain level, then you can, thinking it's a little bit too strong, it's a little bit too weak. So So just get most of it blended in, and then you can mess around with other things. The trouble is here, I'm sort of rushing through to show you guys, but normally this is that thing where you just take your time and blend and blend and blend. So we're just going to polishing these. Once you've got that initial blend in, then we can start to really work them down. And again, you can use your finger, so you can get your finger in, which is great because with oils it slides better across, so you can blend in with your finger, which is another good one. And obviously just rubbing in, moving round. A little bit of wash still just down at the back here, which we do. Clean that up just a little bit. Yeah, and if anything's looking a little bit too strong, and there we go. See, you can see how it really now is starting to pop. And again, we're going to blend and blend and blend and going to knock this right back. So we say just keep going at it and you'll be absolutely fine. So what I'm going to do now is carry on. So we're going to blend this down like we've done on this wing. So this just folds down a little bit more, and then obviously I'll do the rest of the model as well. So when we get this done, we'll be back for the next level. Okay, so there we go, looking really, really good. Hopefully you'll agree. So very nice and patchy. She's quite patchy at the moment, but again, some of this is the lights. It doesn't look quite as strong as that in when I'm looking at it. And there we go, underside all done. And that's that next level of depth. So hopefully now you can see what we're trying to achieve with this, where we've got all these different levels coming down in here, making it look all very dirty. And at any point we could mute this back. So what I mean by mute back, we could give it a filter. And in our case, it would be like a dirty filter. So you could literally overspray this with a color just to knock it back. So that would be an incredibly thin coat of something like a sepia color, works very, very well. But literally anything right over it would just knock it back. So you could come along with like a pale gray right over it. But we're going for quite a strong look on here, and again you can see some areas are still very, very strong, but there's various things we're going to do with it. So we're going to actually kind of come in with a little bit of thinners in a minute, just sort of to manipulate some of these around, but generally very, very happy of how she's looking so far. So what we want to do is some of the exhaust smoke stains. So again, this is one of these things where we'll be layering up. So what we will do is we will literally just come in and we'll start here. Now we know the exhaust stain sort of follows this panel back as actually how it goes. So this is really where it is. So we're not going to put in a massive great thing. We're just going to come something a little bit back here. So we're just going to grab a little bit of oil. So we've just got a little bit on the brush. We've probably got too much there. Let me just get this right. So we're just loading up on the card, and then again this is one of these things where you angle it as best as you can. So again we know it's going to come backwards or diagonally backwards from this. All right, so again we're just going to start off in here, and we're going to put in quite a large area because we're going to come in with another color. So we're just, so you're doing this thing of sort of brushing down and then lightening up. So quite heavy in this first area, and then we're just going to take it down. We're not going to go too far because if you notice on Spitfires it's literally just that first type of area. So we're just going to come in, and obviously we're going to blend over this as well. So again we're just going to come in the other side and replicate that again. So again we're just going to go right over this raised, which is actually really nice detail. So again we're just going to make it a little bit bigger, just down onto here. So don't go too mad with it. So again, we've just got both of those areas down in there. So this one here, I just want to put a bit of a curve on the top half, because by its nature you'd have that effect as it comes over the wing of pushing it slightly higher before it comes down again. So that's pretty good on there. So happy with how that is. And then what we're going to do is just going to take a little bit of grey. So the whole point of adding grey into this, and hopefully I've still got a little bit of workable in this as well, we do. Again, it's because we're trying to give that lead effect to the paintwork. So again, we're just going to mixing then these two colours together. And now the leaded area is just going to be in the middle. So again, it's just this thing of like literally we're just going to put it in here. So that's all we want to do. So it's sort of the first area. So hopefully then it will blend in. When this dries back a little bit, what we can do is we can blend it. So centre of it with just that grey in there. Now what we're going to do is try and blend this backwards. So again, it's just this thing of getting it to blend in, all right? So again, we're taking our brush and now we're going to walk it all the way back. So obviously at the tail end it's going to get lighter as it comes back. So again. And then what we can do is we'll pop round afterwards with a little bit of the actual black just to give a more sort of sooted effect. So again, we're just flicking it back and we're sort of curving it down the wing. So we're sort of just following the trajectory of the wing. Again. Now we're just going to start to manipulate it and follow it and pull it and drag it. So that's good. So what we're going to do is now we're just going to clean off that brush just a little bit. I'm just rubbing it off shot. And we're going to pick up a little bit of the black. So we've just got a little bit of the black here. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to each side. Just going to sort of almost frame it. And that's it, so it's down in there, and then again we're back in with this one, and this is just so it and there we go. This is one of those ones it's going to be a catch it in the light job. And then we're just going to go over it and we're just going to pull it all right the way absolutely everywhere. And again. To be honest, I think we've probably overdone the grey just a little bit, but it is almost giving us that sort of lead colour. And again, the great thing about this is we can now shape that a little bit more. So we can just take a cotton bud and we're just going to wipe it away from the top half just a little bit. So we can physically shape those exhausts down. And again, if you find any areas looking a little bit strong or areas you want to deal with, so there we go. And then we can just blendy. That's it. It's got a nice detailed engine look to it. And then again, we're just going to mask it. Again, some of these other areas. There we go. And that gives us our areas done. Get the camera to play ball. There we go. And again, there's lots of other bits we can do on here. So what we can also do as well is, if you want to, take your cotton bud and we can just blend, just going to clean one, some of these areas which are a little bit strong. So again, we're just going to run a cotton bud over these, just to knock these all back a little bit. Pick up a bit of oil, or failing that you can just, as I say, this wing's a little bit strong, so we're just going to, now this has been on here for a little while, we can blend. So we can just come in now and just knock this all back a little bit, just to blend it. So that's it. And that is looking, just going to drag these back. That's actually looking very, very nice. So if we just, there we go. Looking very much the part. Okay, so that's all pretty good. So last up, what we can actually do is a little technique of really just giving it that sort of final worn look to it. So to do that, what we actually do is we will take, got one here, I've got a little vase, we're just going to take a tiny little bit of enamel thinners. So for this it's just literally X20. Then we take quite what really is a nasty brush. You don't want a nice brush for this. So I'm just trying to find one of my more worst brushes, which you think with my pot this would be quite easy. There's one. So I've just got a really small nasty type brush here. So again, this is one of those. We need a little bit of paper. And what we're going to do is just going to follow the actual sort of all the sort of cues for this. So if we look down at this wing, for instance, and we work on this wing, we're just going to pick up a little bit of the thinners. We're going to rub most of it off. So pick up, get rid of most of it, and then what we're going to do is just lightly stipple. Then what happens is this will manipulate the oils which are down on here, and it will, when they dry back, they'll dry back really patchy. So we can just come in and we can literally just maneuver some of this around. So again, this is one of those ones where it's actually quite fun. If you're doing an area like here, around the actual gun base, you know you've got rows of rivets and various details around this. You can literally just pop over those areas and stipple. Then when this dries back, it will dry back and clump up around these said areas. So again, we're just picking it up now. And now this is all sort of wet, it sort of, well, for want of a better word, sort of gives up a little bit, so you can stipple just to make the texture go a little bit funny. And to sort of have that broken look. So if anywhere's looking a little bit too nice, you can just pop in here. And then again, this is why I was saying about use an old brush, don't use a new one, because it will proper go. But you can probably see on this wing tip over here, if we do worry about it here, we'll come back to that other section in a minute. But this is where the oils have literally grouped up. And you can just make that final type of shadow look to this. And again, it's all about not flooding or overdoing anything. So anywhere you find that's a little bit over the top, this is just a great way to just knock it back just a little bit. Because it will just give everything a little bit of texture. over everything so you can so what happens is the oils reactivate and then they'll literally maneuver a little bit and then they'll reform and reclump, hopefully giving you a sort of nice speckly look. So literally it's just catching it as it's drying because it will soften and you can sort of maneuver it. So hopefully you can see it down in this area where it's now got this sort of textured type look down into it, and now over here as well. And again, the clay will work as well because the clay being rehydrated will slightly maneuver, and you can come in with sort of almost like watermarks down into this. And then once this is drying back as it is over here, you can polish it with a cloth just to sort of even out any sort of small textures or anything you go onto it as well. So don't be too worried about it. You can literally come in and use your finger and your normal things like it. But it's just a way of improving the actual overall look. So if you've got an area that looks a little bit strong, you can just add a little bit of texture. So we're just going to come along. We're just going to pop in a little bit of texture, panel line, follow the riveting. Just to help maneuver stuff around. And if you keep it all with thinners over it, it will dry back, or hopefully dry back quite muted. And that's the thing, so it's this thing of layering and building up. So what we're doing now is we're just trying to, almost exaggerate stuff, but you need the oils to be on here and to be dried so you can play with them and manipulate them round just a little bit. So all you're doing is sort of rehydrating them, and now you can sort of go, right, now I'm going to just give you that final little bit of texture, because then as this dries back, it will dry back very, hopefully, randomly. So again, once it's in there, it's starting to dry, you can manipulate and maneuver it onto there. So again, another nice one to show would be the top of this cowl with any luck. So what we're going to do is just going to pop around. Just going to add. And it just adds three-dimensional, little bit of depth into everything. But again, this is just one of those things, you're only doing it where you've been almost. There's no point trying to do this if you haven't been here, because you're just going to rehydrate and just push things around a little bit. So we've got the tail of where this exhaust is, so we'll just hopefully speckle in. Again, a bit tricky trying to show you and do it at the same time, but hopefully you get the effect of what we're trying to achieve here. There we go. Hopefully you can see it as this is drying back. It's drying back very nice and muted, and that's really what we're just trying to achieve on this by just popping it over with enamels. Big thing to remember is don't flood this on, because if you flood this on, you will really be at a world of pain. Because this is just to break it up, make it look speckly. Works better obviously on the lighter colours because it really stands out, but you can do it over the greens as well. But on the greys, particularly, very, very good. And as I say, it dries back, it will dry in really, really sort of quite blotchy. you know, so it just gives a high worn look to an area. But hopefully you can start to see it on that wing what we're trying to achieve. So what I'm going to do is I will carry on whipping around the rest of this one again, and then that will technically finish us to where we want to be. Obviously you can do some cordite marks from the gun, some streaking, obviously with an airbrush, or you can use neat oils to do what we've done just on this one as well, just to really bring it to life. So I'm just going to pop around now doing that same technique on that wing over to this wing as well, and obviously onto the other side, to really make it pop and bring it all to life. And then hopefully once that's done, we can get the exhaust onto it, we can get it onto its gear, we can get the flaps installed, we can get it unmasked, and we'll be pretty much there for the final reveal.